Hello, I'm inventor Dan Zen. Welcome to ZIM Capture. This is a fourth ZIM Capture. The first three brought you through the ZIM.js site at zimjs.com with the news section, the basics section, and the learn section. In the first set of captures in the basic section, we did introduce the frame, which is basically where we can start ZIM. That gives us a template to start. But in this capture, I'd like to look at the frame in more detail. So imagine that we're arriving here at ZIM and we're ready to start coding. If you don't know anything about ZIM, then look at the other captures, and that introduces all what it's about and the various things that you can find on the ZIM site. So we'll press on the frame link here, and there are different types of frames that we can choose. In the earlier capture, we looked at the fit. Today I'd like to just briefly look at the fit, but then take you over to the full and show you how the full works, maybe even load in some assets. Okay, so let's just take a look at the fit for a second. So if we press on the fit, it pulls up an HTML page that currently has a fit. Now let's see, if I F11 this, you can see that as we change the browser size, the canvas fits inside of what is there. And that's not bad for a web app that you're wanting to keep the aspect ratio. Keeping the aspect ratio makes coding things a bit easier because you don't have to worry about scaling and moving things. To look at the source code here, back on the fit page, it says use Control-U. Control-U is just a standard hotkey to see the source of a page. So this is one way that we can get the source. Let's file save as. Now different browsers have different ways to do this. Hopefully you can handle it. But file, I'm right-clicking and saying file save page as. And then I'm going to choose a location for it. I'll just store this one on the desktop, I guess. Now, not a web page complete. Yeah, I guess that's all. Web page complete is fine. No, web page HTML only. That's what we want, because we don't want it storing any graphics that come along with this. Not that there were any graphics, but anyway, web page HTML is fine. And don't call it some big, long, huge thing like that. We call it something a little bit better. So how about I'm going to call this fit.html. And there, I'm storing that. Now we want to go locate that. Oh, you know what? I should have stored it in my code thing. I've got you know, my atom here, and I could have found it more easily than it being on my desktop. But I can go hunt on my desktop. Ooh, desktop reveal, da, 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 da. And I'll open it up in a browser. So there it is opening up in a browser, and you can see it looks the same. And I'll also drop it into Atom here so that we can view it. Okay, so here is the fit template then. And let's increase this code a bit so you can see it there. The first thing you might want to do is just change the title to, you know, whatever you're going to build. Probably change all of that. There's some information about CreateJS and ZIM here, and there's a link to the frame page where we just came from. And then we start in with our scripts. Now there's two scripts we're bringing in. One is all of ZIM here. So that's right there, ZIM 3.03 in this case. And then the other is CreateJS, so the latest CreateJS build. You can see comments from ZIM. So as you're coding, you'll see comments in the console if you turn ZON to true. So ZON is sort of any of these short form little global functions start with Z, and it just basically means Z on. So like you've got the comments are on. So if you don't want to see comments, or if you're finished, you know, with your development, you can say false, and then you won't see any of those comments. But we'll keep the comments going on. The other thing is you can add the word _doc to specifically see the code. So here we've got ZIM 3.03. This is minified code. If we clicked on that, it looked like gobbledygook. But if you really want to see the doc, you go _doc right there just after the 3.3, so _doc.js. And then when you link to that, you would see all of ZIM open source and available to read what's in there. We'll keep the minified version for now. Coming down, if you are using the fit or the full or the what's that other one, fit, full, and surround, then you will, no, it's not surround, outside, that's what it's called. Any of these three, you would get a canvas made for you. Well, in all cases, the canvas is made for you, but here we are styling the canvas. It will be called automatically by default, my canvas. When we go and make the ZIM frame, we can choose to point to another tag, or we can choose another canvas ID name, but for general, my canvas is what the canvas will be made as. And therefore we can style that. So if we want to change our background color to the canvas, we would adjust that right here. As a matter of fact, we can do that right now. For instance, DDD. So that would give us a gray background color. So let's just make sure that we're hooked up. That's a good test right there. We'll change that to gray. I make a save here, and then I come back to my browser and I'll refresh. And now my template in the background is indeed gray. That's still the code, and I don't need that anymore. So here's our canvas, and here's our code. So back to our code. These are the scaling options, so information about the scaling options: fit, outside, full, and tag. And you can have a read as to what those are. Right now we're on the simple one of fit. As it says here, we've set that variable scaling to fit. You don't have to do this. We've also specified a width and a height. We don't have to put them in variables. We could just put those values right in the ZIM frame call. But just to keep things maybe more labeled, we've got scaling, width, and height here. Then we go to make a ZIM frame, which is right here. New ZIM frame. So ZIM is the namespace. That's where all of the ZIM commands are held, except for these short global functions. So here's another global function down here, zog. And zog is like console.log. That's a shortcut to console.log. So if you're wondering what those shortcuts are, you can always pop on out to a browser and go to the documentation. So if we pop on back to ZIM, I should have opened up a new window. There's the docs. So we press on docs. As you can see, there's the docs. It'd be nice to keep those around. Maybe I'll just pop back here and say open in browser, and now I've got our two things, the docs here. This is always handy to have the docs nearby, and then what we're building in this tab. Okay, in the ZIM docs, you can see that ZIM wrap holds all of the short form. They're very short global functions, zog, zid, zis, etc., and you can see what those ones do. Any of the longer ones are in namespaces, so there's ZIM damp, etc., and all the rest on and on and on in the docs. So back into the code here. We make a ZIM frame, a new ZIM frame object. We're storing it in a variable called frame, so from now on we'll reference that in frame. We've passed in the scaling, the width, and the height. There are other parameters available there, but for the most part, you just use these, I think. Now, once frame is ready, so we put a ready event on frame here, and remember that CreateJS provides an on method instead. Well, it also has an add event listener, but on is shorter and gives us a couple extra things that we don't need to worry about right now, but that's the on method. It's like add event listener in JavaScript. So frame.onReady, we run this function, and in our template we're running a function literal that starts there, and it comes all the way down to the end of the ready, just at the end of our script. So that signifies the template from all this kind of stuff. Within that function that is being run when the frame is ready, by the way, what that is doing, ZIM frame is making a canvas for us. It's handling the scaling of that canvas. It handles other things relating to whether we're on mobile or not. It will give us events like resize events and so forth. We'll see a resize event when we go into the full version of frame. But right now, we're on the fit version of frame. So by full version, I just mean the full type of scaling. Okay, so here we are inside of the frame, and there's our console.log, the fact that we're ready. So we'd see that in the console. Frame also gives us a reference to the stage. Now, using frame.stage all the time is a little bit lengthy, so I just keep a local variable here within our frame ready function called stage, and same with the stage width and stage height. As a matter of fact, in a lot of the work that I do, I even shorten form to that, shorten that form to SW and SH, stage width and stage height. For the template, I've sort of spelled it out a little bit more for you. And that's just the frame.width and frame.height, which in this case is whatever width and height you're passing in. Okay. In the case of when you're full, you don't know what those are, and you'll always be able to get them from frame.width and frame.height, as we'll see in the near future. Okay, so once we've established that, really this part right here is where we put our content. Okay, after we put our content, we will usually stage.update to update any of the changes that we've made in there, and then we're at the end of our template. Just popping down further on the end of our template, I guess, we end the script. We've ended the head then, and now we're into a body and the end of HTML. Note that we do not have a canvas tag, so don't make another canvas tag. Well, don't make a canvas tag because ZIM will do that for us. ZIM frame does that for us, as it says here in the HTML comment. Okay, so the content that we've made here is a button. The purpose of this capture is not really to talk about what content we can make, but just to introduce the templates. So we won't really say much about that. We're taking a button, we're centering it, and we're making it click. Okay, so you can put anything in here now. All right, that's the fit template. So I'm going to close this down, badonk. Head on back to here and grab another template. Oh, I closed all that stuff. I'll go back to ZIM, go back to the frame area, and let's choose the full template this time. So if we press on the full template, there it is. It's full screen. Well, not full screen, full browser window, but if this were on mobile, then that would definitely be full. And you can see in there, as we're making it bigger, the ZIM button gets bigger, and if we make it smaller, the ZIM button gets smaller. That does not happen naturally. If we were just to put a button in here, it would stay the same size. By default, ZIM, the full setting of frame, does not scale your content. You've got to manually do that. So let's go in and see how we manually scaled it, and just to play around with the full. So in this case, if you ever right-clicked to try and view the source, that's how I used to always view source, just right-click and view source. Because the full is a huge big picture, any right-click won't let me see the source. It keeps on trying to view this image. And I found that very frustrating until, I guess you could go through the menu and try and find view source this way. But once again, Control U or Apple U will help you find that the source quickly. So here we go, File, Save As. Can I do that? Save Page As, yeah. And there's my desktop. I guess I'll call this full. And this, okay, I'll leave it on my desktop. Full.html, save to my desktop. I should make a little capture folder that allows me to kind of do these captures more easily. But we've saved the full.html on the desktop. I'll just move that around. Let's see, there it is. And I will open this up with Atom. And here's Atom showing us the full template this time. I've got a hotkey that allows me to show this in a browser, but anyway, from Atom, you want to then open up in a browser. And here is the full template opened in a browser. That was the original one from the site. This is our documentation. There's the ZIM frame. I'm going to just drag this over so I'm always dealing with my documentation on the right. So I usually do that. What I'm working on is here. Other stuff is to the right of it. Okay, let's go in and see the full template. So the template's basically the same, all of this stuff. The only difference is once we get to the type of scaling, we said full. We also don't need to set a width and a height to pass into frame because that will be determined by the window. So we just pass in the scaling of full. That's it. So give us a new ZIM frame. And if we wanted to, we could have just said quote full there. And that would have been the same thing, obviously. All right, we store that in frame again, and frame.onReady. When we're ready, we can then get the width and the height. So now we know the width and the height of whatever that window is as this is loading. And we can put our code here. Here we've made another button. And when we click the button, it does something. But positioning, we did not position the button directly right here, because I know I'm going to have to position the button when I resize the window anyway. So I left positioning to a function somewhere else down below here. So if I scroll down, frame gives us a resize event. So frame.onResize, and that resize, by the way, will also trigger right away when when it first loads. It also triggers a resize that will, so we're good. As long as we've got that in there, we don't really have to call this function resize manually at the start. Frame will go, assuming from your, hey, you got no size, and then as soon as you get a size, the resize is called. So here's our function resize, or if we wanted to, we could have put a function literal in there. That would have been fine as well. And inside the function resize, we are constantly asking, anytime it resizes, we're going to say, hey, what's the width now? What's the height now? And we store it in stage width and stage height. Those were probably declared up above. Yeah, they were. You know what, we really don't even need them here, but possibly if we were making other things other than this button, we may have needed them. There they go. They're declared outside here. So here we are putting frame width and frame height back into those variables. So here we are redrawing. Now, I just wanted to kind of show you what it would look like if, for instance, we take these two lines. So I'm going to center the button on the stage and then stage.update. So I copy those and I'm going to put them up here. So outside of the resize, and I'm going to comment them out in the resize. Yeah, I guess I don't need the stage.update either. So in other words, if we don't do any resizing, in other words, we've taken away all of the stuff from the resizing, we're just coming in and we're putting the button on the stage like we did before, where we center the button on the stage once at the beginning. So if I save that and come back to our page here, I refresh, there is the button centered in the middle. Great. But now if I were to resize, that button doesn't go anywhere. So the canvas is changing, yes, but the button is not moving. So that would be your default setting. Now it may be that you want that you're happy just as long as you can see the stuff here. You're relying on them to open the window until you can see that stuff. But usually, and certainly when we use full for mobile apps, we probably want to handle the scaling of the stuff inside. And now we've got a different aspect ratio. So you might have a mobile app that looks long and skinny like this and horizontal, and you might have one that's kind of, well, square if you're making for a watch or BlackBerry Passport or an iPad kind of thing. There's an iPad resolution. So of course you probably know in your browsers you're able to pull up those different aspect ratios and stuff like that and create for them. So this is the time when you'd be using fit, and then you would be moving things around and stretching things so that they fit properly within your full screen canvas. Okay, so let's get back to how we did the scaling then. Here, instead of just doing it once here, we'll pull that out again like that. We don't need that there, and we'll bring it back in the scaling area. And now, as you can see, we are saying zim.scale2, and we're going to scale the button to the stage. As a matter of fact, we're going to scale it to 20% of the stage. So that's what that means. Scale the button to 20% of the stage. And then we're going to center the button on the stage. That also adds child. For the longest time, center and center reg did not add child, but every single time I was using it, my next line was add child, and so I decided to cheat. I'm still not sure whether I like that, because now I have to say every time, center, by the way, it adds child. Maybe I should have just left those two things separate instead of being lazy. But on the other hand, once you get used to it, it saves you a line every time. So you can always pass a last parameter in there, false, and the last parameter would not add it to the stage, but by default it will add it to the stage. So we've scaled it to this 20% of the stage. Now you can as well, I think there's a couple different ZIM scales. Let's pop back out into the documentation and see the couple of different scales. Documentation is here. And if we pop on down, scaling is part of ZIM create. It's a function, and you see most of these things like hit test, there's scale. These are a list of functions in ZIM create for the most part. There's the occasional object in there, but for the most part they're functions. Whereas in the build module and the pages module, most of those things are classes, which are functions, but they're extra. They're classes with the capital letter, and we make objects from them. So in the functions, there's scale. So we can just scale the object to a certain scale. This is just a wrapper, as it says in here, if we open a convenience function to do scale x and scale y at the same time. So if I've always been tired of going scale x and scale y, and so you can just do it in one function if you want. Saves maybe a few characters. Anyway, there you go. We've got scale to, which we just saw, but you can see that it's the object that we're scaling, the bounding object, like what we're scaling to, and then a percentage x and a percentage y. Now, if you, there's also the type. And what does the type do? Oh, min or max, like you can set if those percentages are a min or a max kind of thing. But anyway, percentage x, percentage y. If you don't specify a percentage y, then it will just use that percentage x for both scales, I think, if I recall properly. Of course, it says it in there if you were to look it up. There's also fit. Now, fit is a function that will allow you to fit a rectangle. So you're trying to fit this object into the left top width and height of that object. The inside parameter is if you want to fit it inside. You set that to true. By default, it is true. If you want to fit it to the outside, so it always just fits outside it, then you would set that to false. So fit is also a way to scale something that fits it in there. The most complex scaling is done down here in the layout manager. So that lets you scale regions and how regions all interact with one another. Some anchor, some have margins, and that kind of stuff. So that's for a later capture, the layout scaling. So those are some of the scalings in ZIM. So for now, what do we got? Did we, let's refresh that. I don't know if I saved the other one back again. No, I didn't. So come back in here. Yeah, there's the blue dot. So I haven't saved. Let's bring this scaling back in. We save that. Come back here and refresh. And now if I move it around, it starts scaling it to that percentage of the stage in there. So that's a look. That gets us started. It's a look at the different frames in ZIM frame. Frame scaling modes. And like I said, that's a good place to start. Of course, if you're new to ZIM and you don't even know what you're building, a frame might not do you too much. If you're brand new and you want to find out the different sort of things that you can build with ZIM, then ZIM Learn is a good place to start, and ZIM Bits as well gets you right in there. You can start looking at the code and how we made assets and did all sorts of interactive things. Great. Well, I'm Inventor Dan Zen. This has been a ZIM capture, specifically trying to help you with the templates. If you didn't want to use fit or full, there's a couple other different template sizes there too. You can read all about that on that frame link. We'll see you later for the next ZIM capture. Have a great day. Ciao.